For me, what I was going to take you through today is smart buildings and the digital journey. For me, it's a very personal journey as well, because it's one of the things that we've done. For those that have been in Cork, maybe you've seen our building, 1 Albert Quay, and I'll show you a little video that shows you where I work and what we do as a company.
Every day in this smart building, 2,000 lights are controlled from one central management system, illuminating 170,000 square feet of space. 1,000 people arrive at 5 access card readers, informing 2 chefs how much food to prepare for the day ahead. 6 smart lifts automatically open, taking staff to their floor securely, saving 11 kilowatt hours of energy. 150 fire extinguishers, 100 smoke detectors, 15 fire panels and 2 suppression systems protect the building against the threat of smoke and flame. 86 cameras secure the building's traffic and identity management, while 100 control points are accessed 5,000 times. 150 vents manage 21,000 liters of conditioned air per second, heated or cooled to ideal temperatures. One management platform centralizes it all. Every day, this smart building learns. It monitors fire systems, identifying and eliminating false alarms. It analyzes the city around it to understand traffic, rainfall, CO2, and air quality. It connects with a security hub, enabling a proactive security posture. This smart building learns to conserve energy. It studies chillers, optimizing airflow and temperature to maximize savings. It reduces energy consumption and cost through distributed energy storage. It proactively maintains gold LEED standards and asset value. This smart building learns to manage occupancy. It analyzes meeting room attendance, dynamically changing airflow and temperature. It tracks desk and area usage, aiding authorities in times of emergency and optimizing space requirements. It monitors calories consumed and distances traveled, supporting healthy lifestyles. It works with other connected spaces as they learn and optimize together. And every day, this smart building learns from us. It asks us, are we safe? Are we secure? Are we comfortable? Are we successful? In 1 Albert Quay, Ireland's smartest building, the answer is yes. The answer is Johnson Controls Technology and Building Management Systems, the future of data-enabled business.
So for me, it's a great privilege to work there, and we've started that project in 2014. We broke ground in October of 2014, and we moved into the building on the 5th of February 2016. So a pretty rapid build process, and a significant piece of that was digging out a 2-story basement that's under the building and then sealing it because we're close to the river. So we had to hermetically seal that basement area and then construct the building. And that was done in partnership with John Cleary Developments, who's one of the most successful commercial office developers, certainly in the Cork region and beyond. And BAM were the construction company that built the building, but it was to our specification. And for us, that's really important. These are systems that we live in. We also are an R&D centre for Johnson Controls globally. So we've got more than 400 people that we've added since we started, and more than 200 people in the digital engineering space. And then I lead for Johnson Controls a number of digital businesses globally. And I'll take you through some of those and what we mean by digital businesses and how that's important when you get into these sorts of buildings. I didn't hear the presentations this morning, but I understand there was quite a bit about BIM, and for us that's certainly an important feature of this building is that we did an entire BIM model that has everything that's within the building in the model, and we've got a very strong data governance system that ensures that any change that we would make, that's reflected in the model and there's one source of truth. And then beyond that, we look at how we move from that BIM model into the life cycle of the building and how we manage the building, which is a complex step to take, but it's very important. You can't even start to take that journey unless you've got a very good structure around how you deal with your model in the first place and how you maintain it. We're also, I would say, one of the world's largest IoT companies that most people don't know about, and why I say that is because of all the different systems that we've got within buildings. They're all heavily sensorized. So we've got literally billions of sensors that are deployed in buildings around the world. and we gain lots of information from all these disparate systems. But what we found over the years is that it's very difficult to coherently address big IoT problems, because what you've got is many small pieces of solutions, and trying to stitch them all together in a coherent way that solves big problems is difficult and expensive. So we've taken a different approach, which is we've built our own platform that we call a digital vault, and that allows us to ingest data in a structured way from multiple sources. And we're able to secure it, we're able to make sure that it's GDPR compliant, etc. We can then deploy it in different architectures, from public cloud to hybrid cloud to on-premise. And we build an application layer that sits on top of that significant data lake that we're able to generate. And it's the application layer for us then that becomes important, and we address the many use cases that we hear from our clients around what they need to be able to do in their buildings. And over the last number of years, we've literally collected thousands of use cases of things that people need and want to be able to do with their buildings. And from that, we're, I think, now very skilled at figuring out what's commercial, because you'll get asked to do many, many things, but not everything is commercial and makes sense or can be deployed at scale to many clients. And for us, that's a significant piece of intelligence and learning that we've gone through as to what's commercial and what makes sense. You probably can't see this too well, but data ingestion, virtualized data management for us, intelligent messaging, ambient data analytics, and compliance. These are all big important topics for us, and we were able to build an architecture that allows us to deal with all those problems in a significant way. It enables us to look at and collect data from all our in-building systems. So if you think of Johnson Controls, it's everything bar the steel, the glass, the concrete, the electricity, and the water going into a building. Everything else within the building is in our portfolio. So that's intrusion control, access control, fire detection, fire suppression, building management systems, building control systems, heating systems, ventilation systems, air conditioning systems, and many more. In Cork, we've got all of those from our array of products, and we've also got a distributed energy system, which is a battery array that we can run the building on. And we can harness photovoltaic energy that we can store in a battery array, and we can run the building from that battery over time. And for us, it's a significant sandbox and a deployment center for new technologies that we develop around the world, and some of that technology we develop in Cork also. And we do that in partnership with client companies, so it becomes a place where we can simulate their environment, we can test the systems, validate that they do what they need them to do, and then we go and deploy it customer site. Some of the solutions that I can talk about, smart connected chillers for us is one that I'll give you an example of, and this is where we're leveraging digital data, and it's around the performance of chillers. So what's their health, conditions, status, maintenance level, usage, etc. And it allows us to remotely monitor this all the time across a large network of buildings. We get a huge volume of data, and that allows us to apply machine learning and AI. That allows us to do a lot of predictive analytics. For us, that's important for performance at a client site, but it's also important for us as a company, because it means that we can minimize truck rolls within our business, and that's an expensive process. So if we can get to the right site with the right thing ahead of time, then that reduces the amount of labor and manpower and truck rolls that it costs us to go and make sure that's serviced correctly. So that gives you one solution that we would do. Converged Security is a business that I lead globally for Johnson Controls. And this for us is important. It's the next generation of physical security. So today we're the leader in physical security. So that's intrusion security, access control, CCTV deployments. We're moving beyond that to the use of data. So we take data from in-building systems. We take data from client systems, particularly from IT systems, etc. And we also take third-party data like traffic, weather, crime events, and we mash all of that data together. That gives people a lot of context around what's happening not only within the building but outside the building. To give you an example of how that's relevant in the real world, we were able to show a customer recently where we had looked at 1,000 of their locations, and we had geo-fenced around the location and take a Twitter feed that we then filter to something that might be happening, and we saw an active shooter event happening in a city in the US that was within a geo-fence of a retail location that they had. So we're able to flag that up as risk, and that comes to the top of their queue within their security operating center and says, well, there's something happening in the vicinity of your building. Do you want to do something at that location ahead of it maybe impacting either your clients, your employees, or your location? So it gets them into a proactive security posture. Today, most security systems are detect and react, and we're moving the industry from detect and react to an ability to look at risk, to look at threats, look at that dynamically, calculate that in real time all the time, based on huge volumes of information that we're able to take from multiple sources. And not only can we tell our target and existing clients about those risks and threats, we can actually tell neighboring businesses about the same risks and threats. They may not be customers of ours, but it's still data that can be valuable to them. So there's a lot of different business cases that roll out of that for us. And to give you a sense of it, today I'm just back from a meeting this morning where we're dealing with a client, and they've got a very controlled environment, 4,000 controlled doors. They get more than 1 billion door events per year. And for them, that's a huge influx of data that goes through a security operating center, and you can't man up with enough analysts to ingest that feed of data. And so we've built significant machine learning models and AI capability because we've got that volume that allows us to normalize what's uninteresting that you don't need to react to and filter for what is. And for them, that's a huge advance, and also for us, it's a very significant offering that we're able to bring to the market. So within a security domain, that gives you a little bit of a flavor for where we're heading digitally and why that's important and the kind of value that it brings for clients. Energy and equipment monitoring for us is hugely important. It's what we have a huge strength in as a company, bringing energy bills down for companies, and that's in multiple dimensions. It's around peak shaving, it's around reducing your energy consumption, it's around reducing the energy spend that you have on the consumption that you have. It's controlling systems and then controlling systems of systems. So there are layers and layers of complexity to what we do in that domain. But for us, that's really important. Our Cork location that I'm in is a global demonstrator of the kind of things that we're able to do with energy systems driving down your energy cost. For us, that's what's really important. That's what comes to us from our client base, is what's the life cycle of my building, what's the maintenance costs over time, how do you bring that to the lowest point, how does that increase your asset value, and how does it increase the leasable value to landlord owners of buildings. And that's where the financial equation starts to make sense for them. But you can only do that if you've got a control layer, which we have, if you've got an actuation layer, which we have, if you've got the data feeds that come in, if you've got the models that allow you to do the analytics, and then not only do the analytics, but apply what the analytics are telling you. And that is a big gap that you see today. There are a lot of data companies that will give you a pretty dashboard around something that's happening, but they can't actually apply what the dashboard is telling you needs to be done to impact what the dashboard is displaying. And for us, that's the secret sauce, the piece that we have, is that we own the control layer. So not only can we do the measure, the monitoring, the reporting, the analytics, but whatever the analytics is telling us, we've got the domain expertise to go into that building and impact that environment so that we change the result. And so you're not just getting a dashboard, you're actually getting control and you're getting the optimal condition. And for us, that's a big data exercise, and that's why we've got a significant data science team, and that's all that they do. Central plant optimization, for us, this is where we get into system of systems. So when we're in very complex environments, multi-building locations that have very high energy usage and very complex usage patterns, this is where we've built really, really significant engineering capability to get into that and see how those different systems impact on each other, what are the optimal ways that they should run. And the output from that is what we're showing to clients is, typically somewhere in the 20 to 30% energy reduction over the life cycle, the operating life cycle of their assets. And for big energy consumers, that's a huge, huge impact. Johnson Controls Enterprise Management, or GEM as we call it, this is a new platform that we've released this year, which allows us to attach just about every product within a building to a platform. So for sure we can connect all Johnson Controls equipment, but we're agnostic and open, so we can connect any other system or product to our platform also. Again, it tends to be mostly in energy, in heating and ventilation systems, and in access control systems are the major platforms where we see demand here. But beyond that, we see a lot of demand around comfort and health and well-being, etc. In our facility in Cork, we've done huge research in that area, and we've pushed the boundaries of what's possible. So if you think about the population that we have in the building, we manage health and wellness of our population in pretty sophisticated ways. But if I just talk about food, so we look at the population that we've got in the building at any time. We know exactly how many employees are in the building, how many guests, etc. Everything is cashless within our operation, because as a security company, we didn't want to have cash risk. So every transaction through our restaurant, vending machines, etc. is cashless. You can do it on your access control card, you can do it from your smartphone, or you can tap and go by card as well. We record every transaction. We know exactly what the patterns and preferences are over time. We also monitor everybody's movement within the building, and we've built within the building an open staircase so that when you're in our domain, we say don't use the lift system, use the stairs to get people moving. And then we correlate your calorie consumption and your movement within a building. So we can actually tell you whether you're on a good or bad trajectory. And we employees are able to access that information themselves, and they can adjust their lifestyle based on the data that we're able to provide to them. And we're going to the next level now, which was actually we're integrating with people's Fitbits and iPhones and Apple Watches, so that you get the external data beyond when you're in our workplace, so that you can get the complete picture of how you're performing and the things that you might want to consider adjusting. It also allows us to manage food wastage, so we're preparing precisely what we need for the population that we have that's varying day on day. We manage the menus to get to healthier and healthier options, and what you find is if you do that subtly, people kind of follow that migration without protest, which is interesting for us, because now we don't have people clamoring for chips and whatever else they might have done in early days. And they choose from what's available, but if what's available is healthier, and they're able to manage that environment for themselves. And that's the key for us, is you give the empowerment to the people. It's not us pushing something on them. And again, from a client perspective, we see huge demand from our client companies about how we can help them deploy those types of solutions and technology for them. Assurance services, this is also a business that I lead globally for Johnson Controls. And what assurance services for us is, in simple terms, it starts with asset discovery, and that's a big problem. It seems like a simple problem, but it's a huge but simple problem. People don't know what's in their buildings, and they want to figure out. So how do you go into a building? How do you scan all the assets that are in there? How do you make sure that you're able to locate them subsequently? How do you represent that on a floor map? Then how do you get into the networking that they may be attached to? How do you know the health and condition of those assets? If it's cameras, which for us is a big piece of that domain, how do you know what you're capturing and storing is GDPR compliant? All those sorts of questions. But fundamental to that is that you've got to have a way of ingesting that information. You've got to have access to the location. You've got to have a team of people that can go on site and find those assets. And then we build an application layer that allows us to scan those assets, locate them, represent them on floor maps, and then we get into the other layers of, how are they performing, how do you access them, how do you update them, how do you secure them, how do you make sure they're GDPR compliant, and most importantly now, how do you make sure that all those different assets are cyber compliant. And that's been a major shift in the market in the last year or two particularly. You're starting to see very active hacking of buildings, and buildings now are becoming a target. And so for us, not only are we enabling services within buildings and making them smarter and more functional and valuable, but you now also have to make sure that they're secured. And for us, we do that certainly at a component level and a product level for what we build that are all cyber hardened, but they're all connected to a spaghetti junction of networks that reside within buildings, particularly in current established built environment, which for us is a big piece of what we do. So it's how do you make sure that the network that they're attached to is also secure, that you've got security at a device level, and that you've got a security at any mobile device level that can connect to any of those building systems. And that's a growing problem in the market. And for us, it's something that we're seeing, significant demand from our client base that we solve for them. This one I'll speak briefly about also. This is a business that I lead for Johnson Controls. It's our location services business, and that's us knowing about people and things and assets within buildings and their movements. The one that I'm showing here is something that we've done with in the life science sector, where we're looking at use of lab space. So we had a client that came to us saying, they're getting a lot of complaints from their clinicians, etc., that they can't get access to key equipment when they need it, and it's slowing them down from getting science done. And we started looking at that by sensorizing the equipment and also sensorizing the people. And we got a very good set of data that we went back to the client with, but it wasn't really enough because we were finding that people were in proximity to equipment, but it didn't necessarily mean they were using it. So we then went to another level, which is we then put smart plugs on the equipment to see if we could monitor the current draw as people were in proximity to the equipment. So then you'd know that the equipment was live and in use as they were in proximity to it. And so that was another layer. And then we found that we were controlling the environment within the lab, but they were having experiments go bad because experiments went out of temperature control. So what we discovered then is that we sensorized the equipment further to find that you had a microclimate around the piece of equipment. So while the room was in compliance with the conditions that the room had to be in, you'd have a microclimate around a piece of equipment that would not be in compliance with what you needed to do for your experimentation. And then we've also seen a trend that you're getting labs that are co-locating many different functions within one lab space, but what the unintended consequence of that is that you get cross-contamination of the types of experimentation that they're doing from certain personnel that meet other people. So everyone wants collaboration space, but sometimes collaboration is a bad thing, particularly in science. So we're able to profile the role types and the experiment types that the people are doing and show where the meeting and mingling happens and where cross-contamination can happen. And the net result of all of that huge amount of data and analytics that we've done for them is that actually what they've found is that they've got a rostering and scheduling problem. They don't have to invest in additional equipment. They've now got control of the microclimates, which means they're getting 20% more successful experimentation done, and the cross-contamination problem they're able to control because they know in real time, all the time, how that's performing. So for us, that's maybe one of the better examples of a very complex use case for location services where you monitor people and things and assets and climate and the interrelation of all those different systems. And that's the only way you can solve it. And that's why for us, we've spent the time to build, a data ingestion platform that we can build. We can bring all those different data sets in a structured way. For us, the brick schema is our kind of preferred, but not only, structured data ontology and topology that we can use. And then it allows us to build applications that sit on top of that and bring huge volumes of different disparate data to a problem that solves it for a client. So hopefully that gives you a sense of what we do in Johnson Controls, why digital is so important for us. We're moving beyond being an industrialized and product-based company, which we're very, very strong at. But for us, the future and the high growth space is on the digital information and data that sits on top and within those products that we can get access to. And then how do we apply them to the valuable use cases that our clients have, and how do we solve big complex problems for them?